Hey Creagears, Robo here, and welcome back to the next episode in our Octobot L3.Gs Cosplay project. Yeah, we've had a lot of stuff on our plates, and a deadline that we sadly couldn't even make with the Octobots. Which was why we were not able to do a second video last month. But we will talk about that in a little update video coming soon in the next few days. For now, at least, we can finally continue with the construction of the second to last episode of our cosplay project, with this episode showing off the construction of the body and its accessories. For this episode, we started with some foam board work for the shell of the Octobot. Using these large laser cut panels, we connect into two halves for the bottom half of the body. These we had to glue together, and after the glue had hardened, we could then curve all 12 pieces to prep them for assembly. Another thing to assemble were these panels for the roof. But after the roof, we still had a lot of cutting ahead of us for the actual frame of the body. Because this has to hold a lot of different pieces, we had to make sure that it was sturdy enough to hold everything. So because of this, we had chosen for a wooden frame. We actually considered doing an aluminium frame, but that would have driven the cost up by almost twofold, so that was sadly not a thing to do. And because of this was going to add a lot of weight to the suit, but we hope that most of the weight will be on the aluminium frame that you saw us install into the legs in the previous episode. So we would not have to exert too much force during the wear of the cosplay. But we still have a lot to go. From some bigger pieces for the main circle, to some smaller pieces for the octagon, for the holes of the arms, and even some split pieces for the back of the mech. Which were then glued onto the perpendicular pieces with their connecting legs also attached. This was then followed up with a 75 cm circle for the base of the back. Then, with the help of these laser cut connection pieces, we use these in between the different parts of the frame for an even stronger connection than just the glue alone. With these connected, we could then add the foam board truncated cone to the sides of the rear for the base of the back. With lots of hot glue in between the seam on both the outside and the inside to make sure that the back can handle all of the stress of the suit. And to finish the back, I had also added a layer of acrylic paints, although it was a little unnecessary with all of the spray paints that we will also add to it later on. But at least it helped with the surface finish of the wood. Next, we would connect the octagon for the two holes of the hands of the Octobot, gluing these up in series, and after this glue had set, we would also add a series of screws to reinforce the connection even more. Because of how the frame is made, there is actually a little bit of stress on the connection points. These were then also glued and screwed to their own sets of arms to connect them to the rest of the suit. Because this cannot be transported as one piece, I had to actually think of a way to split the cosplay into different parts. So we have the arms and the legs as separate pieces, and then for the main body we have the DJ studio, the roof, the bottom, the back, and also the two sides. The next frame pieces were the ones connecting the DJ studio that we made in episode 2. These were glued and screwed to the bottom of the turntable, with connection points to the bottom ones with these extra long screws in the middle, and to the two sides on both ends of this piece of the frame. Now with most of the frame pieces made, including the basic bottom and roof of camera, we had to take a little trip to my college to make use of the laser cutter for some more foam board pieces for the upcoming details on the Octobot cosplay. With so many pieces, I was luckily able to get a nice production rhythm of prepping the next file while the laser was still running, so I only needed to insert the next sheet and then I could repeat the process without much time loss. Which made for some very nice pieces like these tops and sides for the vents that will be attached on both the right and the left ends of the roof. And this big top piece was then also glued onto a prep bottom piece. After which we only needed to finish this up with some trimming to the end pieces. And after that, we used the same masking tape pattern technique that we used for the stairs on the Sockeye Station diorama to get both of the sides. These patterns were then placed onto some more foam boards to be cut out and glued onto the sides of each of the two vents. One con about these big pieces is that it leaves a huge pile of leftover pieces though. And this was then quickly stacking up very high. And even with that we're still not done, because we still have the 5 chest speakers to make. Starting from some more truncated cones, one for the front and one for the back. Each of these is then added to a ring for the front plate. By holding the cones in place with some masking tape, I could then start to add the hot glue to the seam on the inside to fuse the two pieces. After both ends are made, I could then grab this large sheet of foam board that I had already curved and glue this in between the truncated cones to create the tires that will make up the 5 chest speakers. Although before the other end could be applied, I first have to add the speakers themselves. For these 5, I had taken apart a Bluetooth speaker box to get the control box, the battery and the 4 included speakers. Now I can start to add the 4 speakers to the tires, except the one in the middle. You know, because we have 5 tires and only 4 speakers, sadly. By using these big pieces of cardboard as a holder for each of the speakers, before we had soldered these onto their new longer wires, and then glued them into the new holders. With all of the speakers added, I could then finally solder the speakers back onto the control box and the battery to complete the system again. And with the control box added to a 3D printed holster on the inside of the frame, all there was left to do is to add one distinguishing detail to the big middle tire, the handle on its bottom. Made from a cardboard tube that you would typically find at the center of an aluminium roll, I then cut some sides with a 45-degree angle and then hot glued these back to the roll with a little weld bead for some extra support. Before we cut the ends to match the profile of the tire and allowing us to actually add it to the big speaker. With the 4 speakers held in place with some clips and some more truncated cones for the shoulder speakers made, I could then finally test out the whole system. By making use of a 3-way splitter cable, I could then connect a phone that I will also use as my viewing screen for the inside of the Octobot to all 3 sets of speakers and play the music that I need during the walk around the con. And then it will all sound something like this. Now we get to the final accessories of the cosplay, starting with the, well, the crutch armor. I don't really know what else to call it. These were some of the most tricky parts we had to make, because they have a lot of natural angles to them to be able to curve around the round shape of the shell. And this was really difficult to do in foam board. Well, the most simple reason is costs. If I wanted to get all of these parts made out of foam, I would have needed one full sheet of 5mm EVA foam and at least half of a 2mm EVA foam sheet for all the details. These costs would have then resulted in around 35 to 40 euros for just the crotch armor alone. Now I was able to make the base parts from just 2 sheets of foam board, resulting in around 6 euros of cost, and 1 sheet of cardstock for the race details, which is around 3 euros. So, all in all, not even 10 euros a cost. Which, in a project that has already costed so much already, with all of the wood and the foam board and everything, it's probably best if I try to save a little bit of cost here and there. After the armor, we got this flexible antenna that we wanted to make from a 3/4 inch PVC pipe. To this I then added a spiral going down the pipe and cut this out with my rotary tool bit on my Dremel. This made the pipe a lot more flexible, and this will then create a lot of passive movement when I walk around it with the cosplay when it's all finished. But we've not only been constructing stuff, we've also been hard at work on some other kinds of details for the Octobot. Mainly some really awesome Arduino driven lights for the back of the DJ studio. With lots of studies to be able to dip our toes back into some Arduino coding, I was able to figure out a few different animations that I could then display onto 10 sets of RGB LED strips that will be placed behind some of the standard acrylic sheets. Lastly, we had to add some of the mesh to the sides of the shoulder speakers. With this combo of some metal mesh and an embroidery fabric for the backing, we get something that will cover the inside of the speakers, which allows it to not show the Bluetooth speakers underneath, but still have lots of sound to go through the mesh. This was also the same technique that we used for the fronts of the chest speakers. With most of the speakers covered and a little hole left for the insertion of the speakers themselves later on, we lastly get to add the edges on both ends of the mesh to finish up the construction of these accessories. Then with some assembly of all of the 5 different parts of the frame, like the sides, the bottom, the roof and even this backing. With most of the frame assembled, we can then add the foam board shell to the frame pieces to cover up all of these loose bones of the Octobot, and after 4 long months of work, I can finally start to see some real shape to this cosplay. And with these added, I could also add the actual back door, which is actually the upgraded back with this hinge to be able to open up to allow access to the inside of the suit once all of the pieces are actually assembled. Then the last thing to make for this video was the aluminium frame that will be added to the inside of the suit to allow me to hold up the cosplay using my shoulders instead of me needing to hold it somewhere along the frame during the entire duration of the con. Using some pop rivets to connect the 2 curved ends with these 30 cm wide strips. And to make it a little bit more comfortable to wear, we also added some strips of 50 mm thick upholstery foam to add some padding to these bare strips of aluminium to not have them actually cut into me while I wear the heavy suit. But with these glued on, we finished the first part of the body, the construction. And next up is the painting and final assembly, and with that, we will have finished the Octobot King L3.Gs Cosplay. Oh, yeah, sorry about this, Creagears, but this time we did not actually have a final results to show you guys. Because we needed to do so many aspects of the Octobot at the same time, because some parts needed to be painted before they could be assembled, etc, etc. We did not get a chance to actually get a clear view of what we had finished in just this video alone. That's why we don't have anything to show for this video. But as we stated at the start of the video, as a compromise to that, in a few days we will release a little update video on what has happened with the delay of this video and the Octobot project in general. Yeah, don't worry about that. It's just that we had a massive moral blow because we missed an important deadline for our con, and we wanted to keep you guys updated on that. So you guys will actually get a little bit of a spoiler for the next part of the project, because the update video is going to show the Octobot way further than what's actually shown in this video. But that's going to be all from us for now. Keep those creative gears turning, and we will see you guys in the next and final episode of the Octobot L3.Gs Cosplay project.